Throughout history, cinema has been a playground for creative rebels. Many movies have challenged social norms and defied censorship. They made audiences gasp and critics debate. These works were once seen as dangerous and taboo. Yet, over time, their daring content helped shape modern filmmaking. In this narrative, we explore 30 films from different eras. Each film broke rules, ignited scandals, and left an indelible mark on the movie industry. The Birth of a Nation, 1915. Released in 1915, this film is one of the earliest examples of ambitious storytelling in cinema. It introduced innovative techniques like sweeping battle scenes and dramatic close-ups. However, its narrative is marred by racist portrayals and harmful stereotypes. The movie glorified a dark past and incited anger among many viewers. Protesters denounced its negative impact on race relations. Even though its technical style influenced future directors, its racist messages left a legacy of pain. The film's controversial power is still debated today. Scholars urge us to study it as a historical artifact, remembering both its groundbreaking artistry and its damaging ideology. Despite being a pioneer in film techniques, its hateful content ensures that it remains a cautionary tale in movie history. Scarface, 1932. Scarface burst onto the screen in 1932 with raw depictions of violence and criminality. The movie's graphic content shocked audiences of its time. It told the story of a ruthless gangster whose actions blurred the line between crime and celebrity. Audiences were not used to such unfiltered brutality, and the film quickly stirred public outcry. Some critics blamed it for corrupting youth, while others saw it as a mirror to the era's turbulent spirit. The uproar led to stricter guidelines in Hollywood. Over the years, Scarface has been reevaluated as a bold commentary on the rise of organized crime. Its influence can be seen in later gangster films that dared to show society's dark underbelly. Today, it stands as a reminder that art can both disturb and inspire. Freaks, 1932. In 1932, director Todd Browning introduced a film that was unlike anything audiences had seen before. Freaks showcased real carnival performers with physical differences. The film used non-traditional actors to tell a haunting story set against the backdrop of a traveling show. Its portrayal of the so-called freaks was both empathetic and unsettling. Many found the film exploitative and offensive. A few viewers even claimed that the film had personal consequences, and one attendee reportedly suffered a tragic loss after watching it. Despite the backlash, Freaks slowly gained a cult following. Critics now view it as a misunderstood work that questions society's definitions of normality. Its shocking honesty continues to spark debates about exploitation and representation on screen. The Great Dictator, 1940. Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator came out at a time when the world trembled under the rise of totalitarian regimes. In 1940, Chaplin dared to mock dictators and fascist ideologies with biting humor. The film blended satire with heartfelt messages, as Chaplin portrayed dual roles, both a ruthless tyrant and a humble common man. Its playful yet pointed criticism of dictators shocked audiences. Many thought it was too daring given the tense political climate. Nevertheless, its blend of comedy and pathos struck a chord with people worldwide. The Great Dictator opened a window for political satire in film. Even today, its call for humanity and understanding resonates with viewers, reminding us of the importance of challenging oppressive power. Citizen Kane, 1941. Citizen Kane arrived on the scene in 1941, a film that dared to critique the power of the media. The story centers on a charismatic newspaper tycoon whose rise to power is portrayed with biting irony. Though the film's narrative might seem tame by modern standards, at the time it was seen as a thinly veiled attack on real-life media magnates. A powerful newspaper owner reportedly used his influence to suppress the film. Advertisements and reviews were banned in certain regions, and theaters were pressured to avoid screening it. Despite these challenges, Citizen Kane managed to spark debate about media control and corruption. It remains an early example of how movies can expose uncomfortable truths about society's power structures. The Outlaw, 1943. In 1943, Howard Hughes set out to challenge Hollywood's strict standards with The Outlaw. This film brought Jane Russell into the limelight. Hughes's provocative promotion highlighted Russell's full figure, which was considered scandalous for its time. Critics were outraged, claiming the film defied moral expectations. The controversy forced authorities to delay the movie's wide release. However, this delay only increased public curiosity. When The Outlaw finally hit theaters, audiences flocked to see what had caused all the fuss. Although reviews were mixed, the film's daring marketing and bold content ensured its place in cinema history. It became a landmark in the fight against overly strict censorship. Song of the South, 1946. Disney's Song of the South was released in 1946 and remains one of the studio's most debated works. The film blends live action with animation to tell folktales set during the Reconstruction era. However, its portrayal of the Old South is heavily romanticized. Critics argued that the movie glossed over the brutal realities of slavery and racial injustice. The cheerful Uncle Remus character, for instance, was seen by many as a symbol of a painful past. Protests and backlash from civil rights groups made it difficult for the film to gain lasting acceptance. Though it features catchy songs and innovative storytelling techniques, Song of the South's problematic content continues to spark discussions about racism in American media. Today, it stands as a reminder that even beloved classics can hide a troubled legacy. The Moon is Blue, 1953. Directed by Otto Preminger, The Moon is Blue arrived in 1953 with a fresh take on comedy. The film was one of the first to openly mention topics related to love, sex, and desire. It used straightforward language that many found shocking. Simple words like virgin and mistress were considered scandalous. The story follows a young bachelor trying to woo a spirited woman who has her own plans. With its light tone and playful dialogue, the movie pushed boundaries while remaining entertaining. Despite protests from conservative groups, The Moon is Blue managed to captivate audiences. Its success paved the way for later films to explore mature themes in a gentle yet provocative manner. Today, it is remembered as a breakthrough in challenging Hollywood's self-imposed limits. The Man with the Golden Arm, 1955. In 1955, Otto Preminger broke new ground with The Man with the Golden Arm. This film was the first major Hollywood work to depict the harsh reality of heroin addiction. Frank Sinatra starred as a man trapped in the grip of his addiction. The film's raw portrayal of drug abuse shocked audiences and drew intense scrutiny. Even as censors attempted to erase references to drugs, Preminger stood firm. The movie's willingness to address a difficult subject head-on forced the industry to confront the realities of addiction. Despite resistance, The Man with the Golden Arm became a critical and commercial success. It opened the door for future films to tell tough stories without being muted by outdated censorship rules. Bonnie and Clyde, 1967. Bonnie and Clyde burst onto screens in 1967 and changed the face of American crime films. This movie told the tale of two notorious bank robbers who lived a life on the edge. With graphic violence and passionate love, it stunned viewers. The couple's escapades were depicted with unflinching realism. Critics were divided. Some admired the film's raw energy, while others decried its brutal portrayal of crime. The movie's stylistic editing and innovative storytelling made it a hallmark of the new Hollywood era. Bonnie and Clyde opened the door to films that did not shy away from exploring the darker side of human nature. Its legacy lives on in countless modern crime dramas that continue to borrow from its bold approach. Midnight Cowboy, 1969. Midnight Cowboy premiered in 1969 with a tale set against the gritty backdrop of New York City. The film follows Joe Buck, a naive Texan, and his unlikely friend, a sickly hustler named Ratso Rizzo. Its unvarnished look at life on the fringes broke many taboos. The portrayal of homosexual relationships and the struggles of urban life earned the film an X rating at first. Yet the movie's honest depiction of vulnerability and survival struck a chord with audiences. It became the first X-rated film to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. Midnight Cowboy's unfiltered narrative and poignant characters opened new avenues for storytelling. It remains a seminal work that captured the raw energy and pain of a changing America. The Wild Bunch, 1969. Directed by Sam Peckinpah, The Wild Bunch redefined the Western genre in 1969. This film followed a group of aging outlaws planning one final heist. Unlike the heroic cowboys of old, these characters were flawed and desperate. Peckinpah used slow-motion sequences and rapid cuts to convey the brutal nature of their world. The violence in the film was depicted with a raw intensity that many viewers found overwhelming. Critics and censors alike debated whether the movie glorified or condemned its subject matter. Despite the controversy, The Wild Bunch became a benchmark for realistic portrayals of violence in westerns. Its innovative style continues to inspire directors who seek to capture the cost of survival in a rapidly changing world. Dirty Harry, 1971. Dirty Harry hit theaters in 1971 and soon became a staple of the action genre. Clint Eastwood played Harry Callahan, a San Francisco cop with a tough, rule-breaking style. The film is best remembered for its iconic catchphrase and gritty realism. At the time of its release, many critics decried the movie's violent content and perceived overstepping of moral boundaries. Some even called the film fascistic and dangerous. Yet, audiences were drawn to its unorthodox hero and uncompromising attitude. Over time, Dirty Harry has come to symbolize a new kind of law and order film, one that doesn't shy away from harsh truths. Its legacy is seen in countless action films that dare to blend justice with brutality. A Clockwork Orange, 1971. Like The Devils, 1971. Ken Russell's The Devils is a film that pushes boundaries on every level. Released in 1971, it tells a fictionalized tale of a French priest accused of witchcraft. The movie is filled with shocking images, brutal violence, surreal religious scenes, and moments of self-harm. Many found the film's graphic content too extreme. Censors around the world trimmed the movie to remove its most contentious scenes. In Finland, the film was banned for decades. Despite the heavy cuts, The Devils earned critical praise for its bold visuals and daring narrative style. Russell's work here challenges viewers to confront the darker aspects of religious fanaticism and human cruelty. It remains a striking example of how art can shock and provoke deep reflection. Straw Dogs, 1971. Straw Dogs, directed by Sam Peckinpah in 1971, tells the unsettling story of a quiet mathematician and his wife who move to a seemingly peaceful English village. Their hope for a calm life is shattered by mounting local hostility. One of the film's most infamous scenes, a prolonged and ambiguous assault, left audiences deeply disturbed. Critics argued over whether the movie was a critique of violence or a dangerous glamorization of brutality. Peckinpah maintained that the film was meant to explore the limits of human endurance and the eruption of pent-up aggression. Despite, or because of, the controversy, Straw Dogs became a significant talking point among filmmakers and critics. Its raw portrayal of suppressed rage continues to spark debate and remains influential in the study of violent cinema. The Last House on the Left, 1972. Wes Craven's debut feature, The Last House on the Left, premiered in 1972 and immediately shocked viewers. The film's plot follows a group of teenagers who become victims of a brutal attack and the subsequent revenge taken by their families. Its graphic violence and unsettling themes left many audience members feeling disturbed and outraged. The film was banned in several countries and heavily edited in others. Critics were divided. Some saw it as a condemnation of violence in the media, while others interpreted it as a gratuitous display of brutality. Despite its controversial nature, The Last House on the Left managed to carve out a place in horror film history. It has since become a reference point for discussions on the limits of on-screen violence and the impact of revenge narratives. Pink Flamingos, 1972. John Waters' Pink Flamingos is a wild, boundary-breaking comedy from 1972. The film takes delight in shocking its audience. Its intentionally outrageous scenes, filled with crass humor and bizarre imagery, were designed to provoke. Waters cast himself among a group of eccentric outcasts who revel in breaking all social taboos. The movie challenges viewers to question what is acceptable in art and humor. Its mix of absurdity and confrontational content made it a magnet for controversy. While some critics dismissed it as tasteless, many fans celebrated its audacity and quirky charm. Pink Flamingos has since become a cult classic, emblematic of a counterculture that refuses to follow mainstream rules. Its legacy lives on as a bold example of art that thrives on being different. I Spit on Your Grave, 1978. I Spit on Your Grave, released in 1978, is one of the most infamous examples of extreme revenge cinema. The film tells the brutal story of a young writer who is viciously attacked and left for dead. Refusing to be a victim, she embarks on a path of relentless vengeance. The movie's graphic scenes of violence and sexual assault were deeply disturbing. Many countries banned it, and it became the subject of intense debates among critics. Some argued that the film's raw depiction of retribution was empowering, while others condemned it as exploitative. Despite the criticism, I Spit on Your Grave gained a cult following and spawned remakes. Its enduring legacy lies in its uncompromising portrayal of a survivor's fight against injustice, no matter how grim the journey. Life of Brian, 1979. Monty Python's Life of Brian debuted in 1979 as a satirical take on religious fervor. The film follows the misadventures of Brian, a man born on the same day as Jesus, who is mistakenly hailed as the Messiah. With a light and irreverent tone, the movie pokes fun at organized religion and fanaticism. Its humor, though playful, sparked outrage among many religious groups. Some saw it as blasphemous and disrespectful. The resulting protests and bans only added to the film's notoriety. Over time, Life of Brian came to be celebrated for its clever satire and insightful social commentary. It reminds us that humor can be a powerful tool for critiquing established norms. The film's ability to provoke laughter and thought in equal measure has cemented its place in cinematic history. Cannibal Holocaust, 1980. Cannibal Holocaust is a 1980 film that pushed the boundaries of horror and exploitation. Directed by Ruggero Deodato, the movie was presented as found footage from a doomed documentary crew in the Amazon rainforest. Its graphic depictions of violence, animal cruelty, and disturbing human behavior shocked even the most hardened horror fans. The film's realism was so intense that Deodato faced legal troubles, accused of making a snuff film. Although he eventually proved that the effects were staged, the controversy lingered. Many countries banned the film for its inhumane content. Cannibal Holocaust forced audiences to confront the darker side of human nature and exploitation. Today, it is both reviled and studied as an extreme example of how far cinema can go in challenging viewer sensibilities. Maniac, 1980. Maniac, released in 1980, is a slasher film that did not hold back on violence. Its storyline follows a disturbed man who embarks on a killing spree in New York City. The film is notorious for its graphic scenes, including moments of extreme brutality and unsettling imagery. Many censors found Maniac too intense to show, and the film was banned in several countries for years. In the United Kingdom, the British Board of Film Classification refused to give it a rating for over 2 decades. Even when it was finally released, some scenes had to be trimmed. Despite its troubled reception, Maniac has gained a cult status among horror fans. Its uncompromising depiction of madness and murder continues to influence the slasher genre, reminding us that extreme content often leaves a lasting impression. The Evil Dead, 1981. Though not as notorious as some other films on this list, The Evil Dead, released in 1981, deserves an honorable mention for its lasting impact on horror. Directed by Sam Raimi, it follows a group of college friends who unwittingly unleash a demonic force in a remote cabin. The film's use of practical effects, quick cuts, and relentless terror created a new template for horror movies. Its graphic violence and disturbing visuals led to bans in several countries, including Finland and Ukraine. Despite the controversy, The Evil Dead developed a dedicated fan base and became a cornerstone for a long-running franchise. It proved that low-budget films could break new ground and leave a permanent mark on the genre. The movie's blend of scares and dark humor continues to influence filmmakers around the world. Henry. Portrait of a Serial Killer, 1986. Henry. Portrait of a Serial Killer came out in 1986 as a stark portrayal of a serial killer's life. The film adopts a documentary-like style to explore the mind of a disturbed man with chilling realism. Its unflinching look at brutality and psychological decay made audiences uncomfortable. Many critics and censors felt the film went too far in its depiction of violence. Despite the backlash, Henry became a cult classic for its raw and unembellished narrative. It challenges viewers to confront the nature of evil without resorting to sensationalism. The film's impact is seen in later works that delve into the minds of criminals. It remains a provocative and unsettling exploration of humanity's darkest corners. The Last Temptation of Christ, 1988. Martin Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ premiered in 1988 and sparked immediate controversy. Based on Nikos Kazantzakis' novel, the film imagines a human side of Jesus Christ. It portrays his internal struggles, doubts, and temptations as he grapples with his divine mission. Many devout viewers and religious groups found the portrayal deeply offensive and blasphemous. Protests erupted in several countries, and the film was banned in places like Singapore and the Philippines. Despite the outcry, Scorsese stood by his vision. Critics praised the film's complex narrative and the powerful performance by its lead actor. Over time, The Last Temptation of Christ has been recognized as a daring work that challenges conventional religious narratives. It remains a compelling example of art questioning sacred ideas. Natural Born Killers, 1994. Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers hit theaters in 1994 with a burst of chaotic energy. This film follows a pair of lovers on a violent rampage, portrayed with a frenetic visual style. Its portrayal of mass media's role in glorifying violence provoked heated debates. Many saw the film as a dangerous influence on youth, while others defended it as a biting critique of society's obsession with crime. The movie's rapid editing, saturated colors, and disturbing imagery made it hard to ignore. Despite, or perhaps because of, its controversial nature, Natural Born Killers spurred discussions about media responsibility and the power of storytelling. Today, it is seen as a provocative work that exposes the darker side of both human nature and modern culture. Kids, 1995. Released in 1995, Kids offered a raw and unfiltered look at urban youth culture. The film portrays teenagers living on the edge in a gritty, uncompromising manner. Its depiction of reckless behavior, drug use, and casual sexuality sparked immediate outrage. Many critics argued that Kids glamorized risky lifestyles, while others saw it as an honest portrayal of a generation facing societal neglect. The film's handheld camera work and documentary-style narrative made it feel immediate and real. Despite the controversy and bans in certain regions, Kids resonated with audiences for its unvarnished truth. Its impact is evident in later films that dare to confront the realities of youth in urban America. Kids remains a stark reminder of the power of cinema to reflect and sometimes challenge the social issues of its time. Salo, or The 120 Days of Sodom, 1975. Pier Paolo Pasolini's Salo, or The 120 Days of Sodom, is a film that tests the limits of on-screen brutality. Released in 1975, it adapts a notorious book into a narrative set during a dark chapter of history. The movie graphically depicts human cruelty and sadism. Its content includes scenes of extreme violence, degradation, and sexual abuse that few films have ever dared to show. Unsurprisingly, many countries banned it outright. Salo forces the viewer to confront the depths of human depravity. While its narrative and imagery are highly disturbing, the film also serves as a powerful commentary on authoritarianism and abuse of power. It remains one of the most polarizing works in cinema, simultaneously condemned and revered for its unflinching honesty. These 30 films represent a spectrum of cinematic rebellion. They challenged social norms, exposed hidden truths, and broke the chains of outdated censorship. From the early days of silent epics to the modern shockers of the 21st century, each movie on this list has its own story of controversy and influence. Their narratives are filled with bold choices, shocking imagery, and unyielding defiance. They remind us that art is not meant to be confined by conventional rules. Instead, these films show that sometimes pushing boundaries is necessary for creative evolution. Whether they were hailed as masterpieces or reviled as moral catastrophes, each film left a lasting impact on audiences and the movie industry alike. Their legacy is one of courage, controversy, and the constant struggle for artistic freedom. In this journey through cinema's wild side, we see that rules were meant to be broken. These movies taught us that challenging the status quo can open up new avenues for storytelling. They provoked conversations about art, morality, and society. Their influence can still be seen in the films that follow. Today, filmmakers continue to test limits, inspired by these early rebels. They prove that controversy and creativity often go hand in hand. As you reflect on these stories, consider the power of provoking and sometimes even healing. The banned films of the past paved the way for a future where bold ideas are celebrated. They are a testament to the idea that true art should never be censored, only understood in its full, raw context.